Welcome back, everybody, to Disc Media, a startup story, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes of starting a business from the ground up. And today, we're going to be getting into, in a few things, but excited today because we're going to be talking about how to turn your expertise, your knowledge, what you have cultivated as an expert, into something of an authority. Today, we are joined by somebody who helps attorneys and professionals, service providers use podcasting as a way to build authority, create trust, and really try and break out in markets that tend to be saturated and loud, right? So we have somebody here who has helped entrepreneurs, has been an entrepreneur since he was a teenager, spent more than 20 years in legal marketing, and throughout his career has moved through business, communication, ministry, marketing, and helping other professionals excel at what they do. We are going to welcome Mr. Dennis Meador. I'm sorry, Dennis, I already messed it up. Dennis Meador, but we're going to call him DM moving forward. Dennis, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on, Ben. I appreciate it. It's fortuitous, as I was like kind of researching your show, and I was like, oh, his show is DM. So now it stands for direct message. It stands for dungeon master. It stands for decision maker. And now it stands for Disc Media. So, or it could just stand for Dennis Meador, which is what it originally came from.
Well, we're going to call you DM from here on out. Makes it easier for everybody. But I appreciate you taking your time. And I have to say, I was watching some of your videos before we got on, and, I do my prep, had some questions chambered, and then I was checking out some of the shorts that you did, and I was like, all right, we're going to get into the topics around some of the things you talk about, because you get into starting a podcast, doing a YouTube channel, leveraging your expertise and really creating authority out of who you are for a broader audience. Before we get into all that, though, I like to have people tell us a little bit about who they are, where they have spent their time up until now, and what got you into what you're doing today.
So I kind of like to think of my life in chapters. Chapter 1, birth to 7. My dad was in the Air Force and moved around quite a bit. I think that taught me at a very young age to not be afraid to approach people and to have conversations. I was the kid that this is my new best friend I just met on the playground. I might not ever see him again, but I'm going to enjoy this moment I have with him. And so that kind of conditions you for that. 8 to 13 was a little bit of a rough situation with my mom and the men that she chose to be with, but taught me a lot of things about, being mindful of money, being mindful of those around you and taking care of them. And then I moved in with my father in my teen years. And, I like to tell people I moved from the ghetto to the lowest rung of, the middle class. And so that was kind of like my childhood is like ghetto to the lowest rung. And, my parents were the kind of parents that were just like, listen, there's 6 kids here. We don't make a lot of money. We keep a roof over your head. You're not starving to death. And you got clothes from the church pantry giveaway. So if you want more than that, you got to go out and make it happen. And so at 14, I started a business it really just evolved out of, we were shoveling snow, me, my stepbrother, and his best friend. We got about an hour into it. They didn't want to knock doors. I didn't want to shovel anymore. So I said, guys, I'll knock the doors, get the jobs, you shovel. And so by the time you get done with the job, I'll have the next job ready for you. And that turned into having about 5 or 6 other young people in my neighborhood that I got snow shoveling, raking, lawn mowing, paper routes, all of that. And I did the customer service and collected the money, and I was the face of the company, and they went in and did the jobs. And they would just come to me and say, I want to mow 3 lawns. And so I'd go knock doors until I get them 3 lawns. I get it all set up. And that's how I made my money during most of my teen years.
Take a commission and there you go.
Yeah. So it worked out well for me. But I got into marketing at my late teens. I actually went to a unaccredited Bible institute in a small Bible college. There was less than 50 students in this school. Most of them were not from the United States. And I ended up at a telemarketing firm, and I noticed the people that were making the most money were the ones who were selling ads in the magazines for police officer groups. So I got into that, loved it, actually went into management there. Then I got recruited into selling hospital patient handbook advertising. And that kind of began my journey of, okay, I like marketing, I like advertising. Started my first business in my early 20s, semi-retired for a few years into Eastern Europe. And then around my mid to late 20s, is when I got recruited into legal marketing. And so that's what I've been doing now for about 20 years is legal marketing. I've had agencies, SEO. I've done a lot with social media, starting in Facebook in like 2010. I've done a lot with, I've had text message agencies. So I've done a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I launched this about 2 years ago, actually 2 years ago, May 1st. And it was me, my VA, and a guy doing piecework for me. I had kind of come up with this idea because I had been hearing attorneys say for 5-7 years that they used to charge $450 an hour, but because of the competition and how competitive their market is, now they're charging $325. I heard them constantly saying, "Yeah, I don't like to advertise because when I market, people call me and the first thing they want to ask me is how much is it?" And so, I was kind of putting two and two together and realized like the cachet of the industry that I saw as a kid, when you grow up, you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, a lot of us were told, that cachet had gone. And I was like, well, what happened? And it was really the commoditization of the industry through the internet. So I started thinking of like, in the company I was with before, we did SEO and restorative authority through SEO. But with the podcast, I was like, okay, how do I create a podcast system that is low friction? Because attorneys don't want to come up with questions, find guests, research back, all the stuff that you have to do to make a podcast happen. They don't want to edit. They don't want to, I mean, I don't know how much of your stuff you do, Ben, but here's what I've learned. It takes about
100%.
Okay, so would it be fair for me to say it takes approximately 6 to 10 hours if you edit and do a lot of like cleanup and stuff for you to get a good product to put out there? And then if you're going to market it and build shorts and reels and do all the stuff and put it out there, you're going to add another 2 to 5 hours on top of that per episode. That's what I've seen.
I would say that I have a more efficient process than that, but to build that process and get it tight, yeah, you're going to be putting in definitely more than that. And I think historically, yes, I have put in that amount of time per episode, but now software's gotten better. I've got
Right.
templates, I've got, all kinds of things set up. So I've compressed it, but it's still an investment in time and attention.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. If your billable hour is $450 an hour and you're
Yeah.
spending 20 hours a month for a marketing outlet, you're essentially paying, $2,000. I'm sorry, no, not 2,000. 450 times 10 is 40. You're paying $9,000 in your time to be able to produce a product. And so I wanted something that was very low friction, but was also very effective. So what I did is I kind of flipped the script a little bit. So most podcasts are what we're doing right now. You come, it's your show. I come on your show. You ask me questions. You want to make me look good, which I appreciate, right? And, at the end of it, you walk away and your hope is that you provided value by connecting me to your audience. But for attorneys, that's a very slow progression to get from that to client. So what I did is I actually started hiring hosts who had already been interviewing people, had podcasts for years. They know how to like kind of regulate a podcast, regulate an interview. So I hired hosts to interview the attorneys. And then what we do is just an FAQ, and every episode is about their client. So I'm the divorce lawyer for Atlanta. I'm going to answer 7 to 10 questions about custody and if I want more than just weekends if I'm a dad. So we built what we call authority podcasts. And, it's been something now. Here we are 2 years later. We have a great retention rate. We have dozens and dozens of testimonials of clients who consistently get clients through this platform, and they get good clients who pay the rates that they want. Their first question isn't, how much is it? Their first question is, hey, I've been listening to your podcast, watching you and blah, blah, blah. I want to work with you. What's it going to take? So flipping that dynamic into authoritative positioning, which we'll get more into here in a bit. Now here we are 2 years later. I have 250 shows, 350 episodes a month, and about 75 people on the team, multiple seven-figure company, and all from just basically saying, hey, let's restore authority to people who've traditionally had it. And let's be honest, if we don't give them individual authority, they all look the same on a website. I went to this school for these cases, so
Classic pose.
we've got to make them real people to people who are searching and in the different parts of the journey before they actually become a client. So that's what I'm trying to do through my process and through our company. That's not all we do. We do enable other types of podcasts. There are about 6 podcasts that I tell people about. 5 of them majorly, but 6 that can be used as a business. But for the most part, we've seen a lot of success with it. We really enjoy it, and we're just growing.
First of all, I love this niche expertise angle, and I'm seeing more of it coming through in social media, TikTok, Facebook and whatnot.
Well, and here's the thing. Everybody has a completely unique situation that nobody else has gone through, and they want an expert that has dealt with that very unique situation that's never happened in history a lot of times. So, they're just like, I'm a high asset father going through a divorce. She's trying to take the business, and, I want joint custody. And so, like,
how many people in your life have that experience and can give you advice?
Exactly. But when we can talk about the algorithm if you want to get into it, but when I start exploring my issue, if somebody that is local and relevant to me starts speaking to my exact issue, gives me clarity, assuages my fears, and kind of gives me hope and a bit of a roadmap, that person very quickly goes from a 1-minute video, a 20-minute podcast, a website that I look at, to somebody that almost becomes like I have like a pseudo relationship with them. Like literally now, in my opinion, for the most part, when people are doing media right, the initial consultation is actually the final consultation. And all they're doing is meeting and making sure you're the same person offline that you claim to be online. And I'll give you one quick illustration and we can move on from here. My wife, we're having a baby. That's why we're moving from here to Merida, Mexico. Merida, Mexico has great health care, especially in the private sector. And so we went and we visited 2 doctors. And the first doctor we went and we visited, we sat down and we get in and he's got the pictures all over the walls of the moms holding their babies. And, he seems like a nice enough guy. And he's asking question after question. And my wife has all the answers. At the end, he goes, any other questions? And my wife said, no, I've been following you on Instagram for 2 years now. You're already my doctor. I just wanted to come meet you. And that's how relationships are built now. We just, in the media and in the business realm, are not quite seeing it yet. But I'm living it and have been seeing it for years. And that's what we're trying to empower. My goal, and I tell my team this, I would love to be considered the Henry Ford of professional content connections. To basically say, you remember when we used to think that media and marketing was all about putting a logo and having some cool sayings underneath of it and some bullet points, before we used to just actually connect with our clients, have podcasts, have YouTube shows, and then people came in and felt like they already knew us, and then we could, have a much better practice or a much better business. That's my goal.
One of the reasons that I put Dist Media together, the mantra, I always say, how managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what you do. And really kind of as an information platform to give people some fuel to get better. And what I've found in building this thing is that I've gotten better myself at the marketing, the tagging, the SEO, and now it's getting to the point where I look at other, like, I don't just look at other content, I study other content. Like, why does this resonate? Even when I post, sometimes I'll post a short, in 24 hours, it'll get 800 views. And then the one right before that, literally a day before, doesn't even break 100. And you dive into that and it's like, well, why? And I think what I love about what you're doing is you're helping people move past all of that study and research, and you're bringing to kind of the digital audience how to leverage their expertise in a way that's going to get them noticed, but not necessarily well. And again, I'll have to ask you a little bit more on this, but one of the things that you mentioned in one of your videos that I saw on YouTube was you're not trying to blow people up to go viral. You're trying to get them good, credible clients that are going to invest in their business. And those are really two very different things. Like, if your idea of doing content and putting it online is to blow up, to be an influencer, that's a different journey than trying to get clients. So can you give me a little bit more insight on those two paths and why you don't necessarily do the content for scale? At least, and again, I'm only saying that because of that video.
Oh no, it's all through my stuff.
Other things you do.
It's all through my stuff. Like, absolutely. Like, so I've started using this phrase. I want to put this like on all my podcasts, but I don't know, at least on my own, but it's like, warning, this content is not designed for mass consumption. It is for a certain person in a certain place at a certain time in their life with a certain problem. So I like to use this illustration. So the CPM on YouTube is, depending on your demographic, it could be $2,000 to $6,000, right? If you hit 1 million. So let's just say you have a viral video and you get a middle of the road demographic. So you get $4,000 from YouTube. Fantastic. Now you're an attorney. $4,000 check from YouTube. Now, in order to do that, you either had to mess up somewhere, say something that people are whatever, or you did something goofy, right? Or, so I'm going to give you that choice. A million people are going to view your video. You're going to get a $4,000 check, but you're not going to get anybody call. You're not going to get any clients. Or you're going to have this other video, this other podcast. It only gets 50 people. But these 50 people are local people that have the need. They're not, you don't listen to a 20-minute podcast about how to get, custody of your children as a man when you're a high asset individual for fun. Like, you need that podcast at that moment. And so let's say 50 people view it, 10 people call you, and 4 people hire you. The retainer alone is $7,500. Well, probably for a high asset person, the retainer alone is going to be conservatively $10,000, and you're probably going to charge somewhere around $5,000-$6,000. On a high asset divorce, you're probably going to conservatively get $25,000 to $50,000. So if you have 4 clients at $25,000 each, that's $100,000 in business. Would you rather have a $4,000 check and a video that says you had 1 million views, or would you rather have $100,000 in business to your law firm and 50 views or downloads? I'm of the opinion that most attorneys would rather have the second. That's my opinion. And most attorneys have been agreeing with me that are working with me. And so I think sometimes it's like, when you're competing for views instead of clients, you are now competing against literally every other person on the internet. But when you're competing for your very niche clients, you're only competing for the other people against the other people who are making very niche content for your exact set of clients in your marketplace, which might be nobody, or it might be one or two other people. So competing for eyeballs versus competing for clients is a completely different game. But because we all live in the internet now, if we're going to make a living, we need to differentiate out the two. And that's what I've seen, that's what I've experienced, and that's what I've been teaching and seeing for my clients. They're like, I've had a few clients say to me, I was really worried. I saw and I put the video out and it was like 13 views in the first week, but then I got 2 calls and a client hired me. And I was like, oh, he was right. Because we were taught there are 150,000 of these newspapers going out, and 1% of the market at any given time is looking for your service. Or there are, 50,000 people that watch this show in the market every night. We're taught like you need mass numbers to reach your specific clientele. But when you build your content from the clientele to you, now you don't need mass numbers. You're only speaking to that 1% in the marketplace who are in the buying journey or, in the journey, the client experience journey.
So my plan of attack is broad, build like wide, build strong, and kind of go that route. And I guess the thing here is that there's no necessarily the right way is the way that works for what you're trying to accomplish.
Correct.
And I think what I love about what you do is that you've cracked the code, I think, on how to do it for people who are in a very specialized group of professionals who do very specific work that is really hard. I mean, it's not like the accident attorney, right? I don't know, maybe it could be, but it sounds like
we have a lot of PI attorneys that work with us and do very well because they can niche down to very specific cases. So now they can have a whole series on traumatic brain injury. So when a brain injury happens, now I'm watching that content. So while you would think, a consumer facing broad wouldn't be, no, what we do is we say, okay, what's the ideal case? What's the case if you only had your whole caseload was this, it would be a dream practice for you. And then we build the content with that. And then what we say is we go super deep with the content. And now that we own a space and the algorithms are paying attention to our clients, now we can start to go wide. So now we own traumatic brain injury, wrongful death, med mal, things that a lot of people don't want to touch as much because there's a lot of money to put into them. But now because the algorithms are paying attention, we can start talking about auto accidents and motorcycle accidents and slip and falls and whatever else they do want to cover. So you drill down on a very specific case type to establish and entrench yourself in the algorithms. But then from there, because you are now entrenched, you can start to expand out from that.
You know what is really, I wonder if you've ever had this situation because of the kind of content that you make that it really focuses. Have you ever had something that you created with that level of focus and then some national story comes out, everybody's Googling that thing and they're all hitting a video that you've made?
So yes, we actually have a client who was a very specialized attorney. And when I tell you the story, there's actually 2 of them. The first guy, he comes to us in November of 24. And he's like, what I do is he was in a big law firm, but he needed to win his own book of business, right? So he's like a partner in a big law firm, but he can brand himself. And he's like, what I do is I help with like border compliance. It's kind of really boring stuff. So it's like border compliance and tariffs and, all that kind of stuff that people really they don't really think about. So like my clients are like big businesses, but I think if I put something, I was like, hey, and like to me, I've worked with like that local guy and I thought, let's give it a try. Like, I think this would be good. Well, we all know what happened in 25 with tariffs. So he went from regionally referred to nationally waitlisted on his clients, because he had all this content already building out there, speaking on the specific things. And then whenever all these businesses started going, oh crap, well, what about this? And oh, this is my situation. His stuff just starts popping up. Now, all of a sudden, he's the guy that they're all calling from all over. And he's just like, I mean, that guy loves me and he's not going anywhere anytime soon. Second situation, same sort of thing. Guy comes to me and he's like, well, I'm in employment, like unemployment, whatever situation, wrongful termination, but I only work with federal employees. So do you think you can help me with that? And I was like, kind of around the same time, I was like, sure, let's give it a try. Well, 2025 comes and there was all those federal things. And again, he had the content there. So yes, sometimes you do, for lack of a better terminology, get lucky. Sometimes you happen to have the right thing at the right place at the right time. And so while he was entrenched with that subject, all of his competitors were like trying to get on Fox and be on this and do that and trying to catch up to him. But the algorithms already recognized him after several months of pushing content in there, of being the resource for the answers for those things. So he benefited. And we've had a few others like that, but those are just two examples that I think it's funny because we all know why.
Yeah.
So I don't claim like, look what I did, but it's fun to be a part of journeys like that with people.
So I got to ask you this though, because sometimes people, when they're very good at what they do, not necessarily the biggest personality when it comes to answering questions, being interviewed, for example. Sometimes they're a little reserved. How do you get past those challenges with the expert who might be a little dry, coming off maybe a little, I don't want to say they're not friendly, but they're hard to connect with?
Sure. So 3 things that we do. First of all, the host. All of my hosts have a background. One of my guys was like a WWE announcer. I had a guy that was like on CNN. I have, ladies that have, tons of like background and professional. So these are trained professionals to bring up and down. So some people are too frenetic. And so my team has to bring them down and, hey, like, let's use some language that people understand. And let's, instead of speaking at 1.5, let's at least get it down to a 1.1, 1.2. So my hosts do a tremendous job with that. And we have on-site producers. Again, industry, like, my executive producer, she produced Stephen King's podcast. She used to produce Michael Cohen's podcast. She worked with Spotify and iHeartMedia. So she's like a real industry known quantity. She heads up that department. She's got producers. She's got hosts that do that. So that's one aspect. Secondly, we try to create what we call an across the desk approach, especially in the beginning with our attorneys. So while attorneys aren't necessarily used to performing, they are used to being on Zoom for court for a while, for a year and a half, 2 years, for client consultations. And so most of our attorneys are just like how I'm sitting with you. They put a microphone in front of them. They got a camera in front of them. They got hopefully decent lighting. And then they're just talking to the host. We try to, especially if they gel with the host, we use that same host again and again. So they just feel like they're having a conversation with a friend. So we create that across the desk approach. And lastly, people who are watching and listening to these podcasts want to find the best attorney, not the funniest, not the most intriguing. So as an attorney, they can just sit there and just be like, well, yes, I've handled this for 20 years. And typically what I do in this case, and I've had dozens of cases like this. And people are going to hear the words more than the personality. You and I have to kind of, we have to emote, and this is just naturally who I am. So I'm not putting on anything, but
right.
Like us being entertaining is part of our persona. But like when someone's looking for an attorney or real estate, or they're not looking for what I really am looking for? I'm looking for the most entertaining divorce lawyer I can find. No, they want a shark. They want a bull. They want somebody that's going to charge into the court and get them what they think they deserve. And so if somebody seems a little rough around the edges, that's okay. I've got a team to soften that. And that presentation, it's who they are anyway. I have a guy, and this guy, I love this guy. He He's the only attorney that I've ever allowed to connect with me personally on social media, just because I try to have a little bit of like wall in between that. I'm not ashamed of who I am. All my stuff is open, but like, I don't, necessarily pal around with them. I'm making you money. We're making money together. Let's keep it that way. But this guy, we hit it off. So he was with me at the last company that I had, and now he's come over here. Well, he does bankruptcy. He's in the Northeast. He sits back and he always look kind of like this. And he's got like some plants. He's got a bottle of Quaaludes and I think a bong. And he's wearing a shirt. One of his episodes, because I caught it, and I screenshotted it, and I put it on my Facebook, and I said, "These are my clients." It says, what did it say? 69 Uranuses can fit inside the moon. 72 if you relax, or something like that. And I'm just like, what are you doing, man? But like, that's who he is. And so like, if they come and sit across from him, that's who they're going to get. He's going to laugh. He's going to sit back. He's going to be, kind of friendly, but also kind of a little off the wall. But, he loves it. He gets clients off of it, and he gets the clients he wants off of it. Like, if you just answer an ad out of a listing, you might walk in and be like, "Oh, this guy's Quaaludes and bongs and weed he talks about, and he's got a ratty T-shirt that says Morehead University, and he didn't go there." Like, you might be turned off, but because he is who he is, they walk in the door ready to work with him. And so for us, yes, we need to balance them out and we need to kind of soften the edges. But for the most part, we want them to be who they are. If they're not entertaining, but they provide value, people aren't going to care because they want the best lawyer, not the most entertaining one.
Yeah, and that harkens to what you mentioned too in some of your videos about the authenticity and, people being genuine. And you even said it as we started getting into things that people want to connect with a person. At the end of the day, I think when you are not true to who you are, people are going to pick up on that very quickly. So once they get past the video and they start making conversation with you, if you're different, might not necessarily lead to that client you want to capture. Yeah,
exactly. Or that client doesn't want to work with you. And I here's what I tell people is like, imagine you're watching this like attorney and he or she is just so empathetic and kind and, "Oh, we'd love to work with you." And then you go into the office and you're sitting there waiting, you're next up, and you hear him be like, "Susan, my fucking coffee is cold. Get your ass in here. Get my coffee, get my cream, and put the next fucking client in front of me so I can make some goddamn money." Like, you're going to probably get up and just tiptoe out the door and be like, "This is not who I thought I was signing up with." So you've got to be yourself.
Just talking about social media and everything, I tell my students all the time that we live in a world now where you're always on. Anybody at any time can pick up their phone and start filming. And, as long as you're in public, you're free game. Like there's no privacy. If unfortunately, you could film anything as long as it's in public.
And if you have social media, you're free game.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah. So, but I say that because the outbursts that you create, the things that you do in public, anybody at any time can capture that and make you famous for all the wrong reasons.
Yep.
So when you go outside your home, when you go outside of your private space, my whole thing is like, act like everyone's watching because they probably are or could be.
Well, yeah. And what I tell people, like in the concept of founder-led media is like, listen, all companies have founder-led media. It's just a matter of time before we find it out. So, we've seen all these like in the news the last, you had the Me Too movement and you had all these different things that kind of came out of what was happening behind closed doors. And this is just a product of social media. And so for a owner of a business to try to hide behind a logo, it's not going to cut it anymore. Because, like you said, either their social media. How many times is somebody in just a tizzy and just they've tweeted something or they posted something on Facebook that racist or something, and then they like delete it right away, and yet somebody screenshotted it and they put it out there, and they're like, "Yeah, we got you." So, like, owners, business owners, like all of us, we're all at all times. There's no hiding. So why not just be yourself all the time? If I walked around and I was like a big proponent against, cursing in media, and then, one of my personal Facebook posts got out there where I'm just like, fuck this and da 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 da, like, that's disingenuous. That's hypocritical. Like, people are the real you is going to come out no matter what. You might as well embrace it, be honest about it, and use it to your company's advantage. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for me it's really about, I mean, I know where I'm at, I know where I'm going, and I know, like, the plan. And fortunately thus far, every box, every milestone that we've set, we've hit it. We've fought through some stuff to hit it. It didn't come easy. We've had setbacks. We've had things that have come along that have, made me think maybe this isn't going to have the trajectory that I hoped it would. But at the same time, every time some little discouragement comes along, three big encouragements have slapped me in the face with it. So, you know, and I would say for me, and this probably comes from my background of with as my childhood and kind of being the oldest kid and going through different things, and then also as a pastor for about 20 years. And so, I now understand the weight of the fact that there are 75 people, whether it's as part of their income or their only income, that they depend on this. So I do take it very seriously, and I share my goals with them. They share their goals with me, and I try to help them reach them through the company. So it's one of those things that for me, being a part of what I'm a part of, yes, I love growing the business, but to me, the business growth is a byproduct of the dozens of clients who say to me, I get clients from this all the time. I love you. You keep me busy. I'm doing this as long as I can. And the teammates that I have who come to me and say, hey, like Jenny, she's been with me a number of years, even predating this, but like, Jenny, she's been with me 5 or 6 years. She's in the Philippines. She was my VA. Now she's the head of VAs. And about a year and a half ago, she's like, I'm building a house. I'm the first one in my family to be able to do that. I'm building a wing for my parents. We're going on vacation this year. These are things that no one in my family has ever been able to do. And by working together, I've been able, and I could give you story after story after story like that. But to me, that's the story of a company. The story isn't margins and revenue and MRR and ARR and all the different things that come with it. Those things are byproducts of a company that's focused on people and on the people that we serve. And if I serve people who then serve the people that we bring on as clients, then I can't help but feel like that is going to put us all in a position to be successful together. I'll be honest with you. I mean, Ben, I spend 10 to 15 hours a week now, and I'm 2 years into this. All I do is mostly podcasts. Monday, I meet with all of my teams, and they give me everything that they're working on through the week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I do my podcasts. And then Friday, I just take about half the day. I check off all the things that people want to make sure I'm okay with, and I'm done. So like, I feel extremely fortunate to be in a position where I get to work with people who, first of all, they take pride in that. Like when I went on my honeymoon last year, we were 7 months into the business. I went to Thailand and Bali, and I was gone for 8 weeks. The company mantra was, let's make Dennis proud so that when he comes back, he doesn't get worried. Like, and that's what they shared with me. And so like being a part of something like that, that is what I'm more excited about, more than the fact that, by year 7, I want to be at $30 million with a net 20% profit and living somewhere in Southeast Asia and only having to work 2 hours a week. Like that's the ultimate goal. My whole team knows it. I don't hide it. I've said it on other podcasts. Like I'm a lifestyle business person. So I build my business in a way that's designed to enable me to take vacations, to take days off if I need it. And I tell my team to do the same thing because I tell them I didn't hire you for time. I hired you for results. And so if you have the results and you could do the results while you're in Portugal, sitting on a beach, I don't care. I'm like, you work off a laptop like I do. You could get that apartment right there for 600 US a month. You could live right on the beach. The internet here is great. Why aren't you doing it? Oh, well, so that's what I try to do.
I get the pleasure of talking to a lot of founders in doing this podcast, and I've had a few on lately, very similar to what you just said. It's like I see the joy and the pleasure they get out of enabling other people to live a better life, enabling other people to be able to achieve some things, some accomplishments of their own. And you're the same way. It's owning a business, building it, building a team, and allowing those people on the team to be able to accomplish some things in their life. That is I hate to be so cliche, but isn't that what it's all about? Like, just building things and helping people, get a little bit more themselves.
And not losing sleep every night and not working 90 hours a week. You know what I mean? Like it's I have a quality of life and my team has a quality of life. And that's the kind of stuff that I get excited about. I troll my own, because we have this thing called Roam. It's like a virtual office. And so if you're working in the company programs, it'll show you in office. So sometimes on the evenings and weekends, I'll just pull it up and look, and I'll see somebody in there, and I'll hop in their office. I'll knock on their door, and they're like, yeah. And I say, it's 7:30 on a Friday. Why aren't you with your family? What happened this week that you feel like you need to still be here? It's Sunday afternoon. What are you doing in here? Oh, I was just getting some stuff caught up real quick. What is in your workflow that is keeping you from being able to accomplish it at the hours we set aside? Let's look at your workflow. We're meeting on workflow next week, because if you have to sneak in evenings and weekends, I literally promote and police the fact that I don't want you working when you're not supposed to be working. I want you to have a life. What I tell people is, you have a life. This is just how you pay for it. I'll be forthright. I mean, I was a hard charger. I was 19 when I got married. I had my first kid at 22. From 16 to 36, I believed every moment must be monetized. And at 36, I had a nervous breakdown. I spent 1.5 years in bed. I thought I had MS till I finally got in with a neurologist, and he said, you have what is called successful man syndrome. And I said, are you just describing a nervous breakdown? And he's like, yes, that is. Because I was like, how do I have a nervous breakdown? I'm happy. I was pastoring a church. I had 2 businesses, 3 kids. I made all my kids' stuff. I was, think everything I was a part of was growing and going. And there's no way I could be stressed, right? But then when I got put on my back, spent 1.5 years, had some things I had to deal through and work through a little bit. But the reality was, I've learned that pacing my life and having a life flow, I can produce 10 times more by going slow and having a good flow than when I get where I'm just charging and charging. For example, one of the things I do, Ben, every internal meeting, all my podcasts, everything I do is recorded, and my team pulls transcripts, and they make the newsletters, the emails. I have a daily email that goes out to 45,000 attorneys. I have a ton of content that all comes from me, but it just comes in a natural way. So I accomplish a lot, but what I accomplish is done in the flow of my regular day. I just capture everything I do and then multiply it.
No, that is very smart. When I talked earlier about building routines and workflows so that I don't spend as much time editing, I'm very much a process person. Mm-hmm. My background has been in operations, and so I am always looking for flow and efficiency. There's time I put into creating it, but then I kind of reuse and recycle a lot of things so that I don't spend my whole day creating stuff.
So
To say the
we're getting
least.
we're getting ready to transition to AI. When I first started the company, I said I wanted to be AI forward. And so every tool, we would try it and how can we use this and how can we use that and things like that. But as I see the evolution of what's happening, we are now changing to where we're trying to become an AI centric business. So we're still people, but the center brain that accesses everything, because we've got ClickUp and we got Notion and we got Pipedrive and we got a ConvertKit and we got Instantly and we got all these different places. We've got G Suite with Google Docs in it and all this information that's everywhere that creates so much drag across our company. We're trying to compile it all into one central brain where we all just work in and out of that brain. And then I kind of come from over the top and just keep feeding the brain. And then, so there's a lot out there. I just spent 2 weeks ago, I was in Mexico City. And are you familiar with Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week?
100%, yes.
Okay. So I read that book in my mid-20s. It was like when I had my first business. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of what I'm doing, just I'm doing a different kind of business, because I started a business and then I moved to Romania. My ex-wife was from there, built a house, and I ran that business on phone cards and dial-up internet. And we were doing $4 to $5 million a year with a net 25% profit margin selling a product that I had come up with. So, I was just like, I guess I'm kind of already doing this. All these years later, I'm still kind of trying to build lifestyle businesses, not really realizing. And I came across this group called Dynamite Circle. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I hadn't heard of it.
They're all business owners who kind of these two guys were living according to, Tim Ferriss principles 15 years ago. And then they became friends and they made more friends of people that kind of lived that. And they'd meet in Bangkok and then they'd meet in, Portugal, and then they'd meet in Mexico City. And they just were, and then more that they met. Now there's a couple thousand people in this group. I did a 2.5-hour mastermind with four total multi-million-dollar agencies where we talked through today as part of our membership. And then I was in Mexico City and we spent 4 days talking about AI centric versus, AI traditional and adding it into the model. Should we be adding bots for the work or should we be going centric and then using bots as task rabbits? And so the people that 20 years ago were outsourcing and living freedom are now going into AI with outsourcing and living freedom. The people at the top, these big, huge companies, and then there's these people that kind of sit in sort of that no man land where they can build 1 to 3 million up to 10, 20, $50 million businesses. So basically a $1 to $50 million business you can build kind of floating and having a decent lifestyle, but still being able to utilize the tools and not be locked into one office with one group of people and, slowing down your business progression.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it with other guests on the show about AI really is a great augmentation. It's not a replacement.
Correct. Right. Well, and here's the thing, with AI. So let me regather my thought there because I had it and then I'm going to go back. So we're talking about AI and so AI only replaces when you're working at massive scale. So AI can replace if you have an almost infinite amount of opportunities. And so if one gets screwed up, you move on to the next. That's the corporate mentality. That's the billion-dollar company. But most of us don't have an infinite number of opportunities. If I'm a divorce lawyer, there's only 200 divorces in my jurisdiction a year, and there's 42 attorneys that want them. So on average, they're going to get 5, but some people are going to get more, and some people are going to get none. So when you work at scale, You can use AI to just crunch through. Oh, I messed up on that. Just fix it. But when we're working in the environments that we work in, where there's a set amount of opportunity, there's a specific geographic location that we can work within that opportunity. That's when we have to use AI, like you said, as an empowerment tool that we're closely monitoring. And that's the difference. How much data do you have to burn through to get where you want to go? 90-something% of businesses are small businesses. 90% of us out here are not going to do what Facebook does and just goes, you know what, let's burn $180 billion this year figuring it out. And if we lose, we lose, but we'll get there. We're just not at that place.
Yeah, and a lot of the big tech companies right now that are going through those layoffs, at least the ones who have said, due to technological advances, things like that,
I think
a lot of them are clearing the decks to invest more in AI infrastructure, buying chips, buying data centers, building things like that out. But what we're starting to see, at least even with Amazon, is a lot of the people that they let go, a lot of those tech stacks that they thought they could automate, they're having a little bit of difficulty doing. They're starting to bring back some of those people because they're realizing that some of the automations they thought were going to be there aren't necessarily panning out. So, it's all still very early right now. There's
it is. You know what I think? Here's the funniest AI thing to me right now. Anthropic, Claude. Everybody's building their marketing off of Claude. Claude, I have this client base. Here's what I've written in the past. Give me my next 10 LinkedIn posts. Do you know what Anthropic is hiring for right now for their marketing department? Copywriters.
Yeah, I've heard this.
They are hiring copywriters to write their copy to sell us AI to write our copy.
Because the AI voice is very vanilla. It's not contextualizing, people's voices very well. There's no human element to it.
I just did a post yesterday, and the post was this. I said, imagine you walk up to like a Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors, and you see chocolate mint pistachio, you see Rocky Road, you see strawberry, margarita, you see all these just outstanding flavors, and you say to them, those look really good. Can I try one? And so they go behind the counter, they dip, they hand it to you, and it's vanilla ice cream. And you're like, well, that doesn't look like that green pistachio. But so you try, and you're like, well, that's vanilla. Okay, well, can I try the Rocky Road? And so they go behind the counter, they hand you, and they hand you the vanilla. That is exactly what a lot of small businesses are doing now. They're handing out vanilla samples of who they are and saying that they're Rocky Road, trust me. And so, if you're using like Claude or ChatGPT or even the smaller LLM models, like, here's the way we do it. Human, structure, edit, rehumanize, and use. So now what used to take sitting down for 4 hours to put out a piece of content, it's probably human time 30 minutes instead of 4 hours, and we're coming up with the same thing. It's just that we're using the AI in the middle to kind of build the structure of the actual, like, making it make sense, and then rehumanize it. So we do human, AI, rehumanize, and restructure. And that's been a good formula for us. Here's the thing. Be 25 and under, and don't lean on it, and you stand head and shoulders. Like, when the bar lowers, you stand so much taller just by being your regular height.
I always like to ask people, what is the thing right now that is you're excited to get up in the morning, and something that you guys are working on?
In the business or in life in general?
It could be anything. Usually people answer in the business, but whatever sparks you.
My wife is having her first baby. I have 3 adult children. This is my second marriage. So my wife is having her first baby. And, every day I wake up and I swear she is the most pleasant pregnant woman I have ever been around. And I'm not just saying that because she won't watch this. She thinks I'm boring. So I'm not getting any points off saying this on this podcast. Don't think it's like, oh, yeah, he's saying that for Brown. No, she's like, and other people
she's in the next room.
Yeah, no, she's not in the next room either. I'm in a little rented office a few blocks down. But no, I mean, we are next Sunday moving to Merida. Then we've got June, July, August, mid-September, we're having the baby. You know, when you're a father young and then you see the fruit, and I love my children, but they're still in their 20s and growing and figuring life out. You learn a lot of lessons that you feel like getting a second chance at is something that is a gift from the universe, from God, whatever you want to believe. And so I really feel like I've got a huge gift ahead of me to invest in a new child and see them grow and be a part of their life, and hopefully be the best possible father I can be and learn lessons from the past and in the present as well.
Well, that is awesome. That is definitely something to be looking forward to. One other thing I want to make sure that people know is, where do they find you? We talked a little bit about some of the content that you're doing and the company and things like that, but I don't think we've ever really dropped it by name. So how do people find you?
Well, I'm going to assume it's all going to be in the comments, right?
It will.
But so if you want to connect with me, LinkedIn is the place. Like, I'm in and out of there every day. I don't pay much attention to Facebook, Instagram, a little bit, mostly for different categories of friends through my life. But LinkedIn is where I kind of live. That's my digital language right now. So if you want to connect with me directly, that's the place. If you want to find out more about my company, thelegalpodcastnetwork.com or theauthoritypodcastnetwork.com. Either one of those sites. The Authority site's a little newer, so I know it's built out, but I haven't went through it recently. But either one of those is going to talk about our processes, our deliverables, our team, what our clients are saying, just kind of the overall experience of what you get working with my team. So check us out, find out about us. And we've got a YouTube channel with my podcasts, with my podcast guest spots, with all my clients' podcasts, with all of we have about 30 shows for lawyers, where we actually have 2 new channels streaming coming out through Amazon, Roku. You can download it. One is LPN, Law Life. That's for lawyers. We've got about 30 shows: mental health, law practice management, marketing for attorneys. Basically, it's just a channel we built for attorneys living the lawyer life. The other one is LPN Law Answers. And that one is from attorneys to the world. You can actually go in and be like, I'm in Georgia, I want a divorce attorney, and you'll see the 3 or 4 Georgia divorce attorneys. You can watch their podcasts, find out about them, and see if one of them resonates with you.
Awesome. Well, yes, I will be sure to put all of the contacts and the links in the show notes so people can pop over to that stuff. And I have to say, I really did. I enjoyed your videos. Pardon me. You've got some really good, insightful knowledge there to share with people. So I encourage people to go check that out.
Yeah, I mean, if you take and I talk for an hour and a half, there's bound to be 2 or 3 minutes of nuggets in there.
We can find a couple wise words in there.
I think they splice them together to make one thing, but hey, I'll take it.
Well, folks who are tuning in, thank you guys very much for checking out this episode of Dis Media, a startup story. Like I always say, we are on a march to hit 100,000 subs by the end of 2026. As of the taping of this episode, we are coming up on 34,000, which is, got a little bit to go. So we got to hit 50 by the end of Q2. So, we gotta hit the gas a little bit. But thank you guys for checking this out. Share with your friends, your family, your enemies, most of all. Those are the folks who are going to take actions on your words. And also, if you happen to get a chance, go on the web, check out my website, benolmos.com. There you can download the first chapter of my book, 10 Topics to Help Managers, Leaders, and Entrepreneurs Get Better at What You Do. And if you like it, feel free to buy it. I would love that. Anyways, thank you guys for checking out this episode. Hope you guys have a good one, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to Dis Media, a startup story. This podcast was produced and edited by Ben Olmos and is a production of Dis Media Corporation. If you're interested in learning more about anything you heard on this episode, please reach out to us at podcast@discmedia.com. You can also get more information about this and other episodes or information about our guests by checking out dailypitch.news, our business and insights publication focused on helping managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what they do.